crowd. Thank you for having me. For centuries, we have all congregated around curious places that we call cities. Some of them are raging successes, and you will all know the ones that come to mind when I say those words. Some are terribly dismal failures. Some have been blessed with vibrancy, energy, tangible sense that they just work, and you don't necessarily know why, but they just do. And some are soulless, shallow, and barely functional. Comparing ourselves to great cities around the world is what developers, architects, city planners typically do. We look to Vancouver for our inspiration, or we go to Hong Kong and have a look. Sometimes we go to New York. It's a healthy, constructive process, and it helps us to look introspectively, but also to take lessons from what's going on around the world. What we can't do is rest on our laurels. We need to continue to push the bar so that we continue to be successful and emerge to be stronger, more confident and dynamic cities. It's about maintaining our competitive edge as well. Great cities and great places are about great leadership. Having vision, working collaboratively with public-private sectors, and delivering a timely agenda that meets the needs of what people actually want and what they're actually going to need is what is important about shaping the future of our cities. Forums like Open House, Melbourne Open House, give us the opportunity to have those discussions and debates. Internationally renowned architectural professor Ken Ma, who is the chairman of Hassel, once said, "Great cities bring ideas, experiences and creative expression together, and they cut across social, political and economic divides towards a common civic purpose." I'm a developer. Some people think that's a good thing, some people think that's a nasty thing to be. One of the things that we are interested in as responsible developers is how do we continue to facilitate and foster the growth of cities in encouraging and positive ways, given that when we're looking at urban renewal projects, we are responsible for projects that are massive in scale, so therefore have a responsibility and an obligation to contribute towards the growth of those cities. So if you look at the Melbourne Outlook growth projections, so the Hoddle Grid was designed in 1837 when the population was only a few thousand people. We have a population of 4 million and we are growing. We need to have a vision for the central city that matches and aligns with our growth. We can't only expand the outer suburbs, but we also need to extend the beating heart of our city areas and deliver what people are telling us they want and they need. In 1990, many of you will remember that the population of Melbourne CBD was only a few hundred residents. Today, over 30,000 people call the CBD, South Bank and the Docklands home. A bold new vision for the extension and how we cope with this change is needed. We also need to have a look at what's happening with the Australian dream. We need to consider that medium and high density living are a characteristic feature of successful cities around the world, and they are fundamental elements of what we should do with our state and city planning. We also need to consider that at the moment we have unsustainable city footprints. More than half of the world's population live in cities. They produce 75% of the world's waste. They consume 75% of the world's energy, while only taking up 2% of the land footprint. Melbourne is going to need an additional 620,000 households to cater for another 1 million people by 2030. So that's a pretty big agenda. The way that we respond to that needs to be flexible and cater for the changing lifestyles and needs that are coming. Again, it's also about cementing Melbourne as the best city for economic growth and development in the future. So what is it that makes a good city? It's a subjective discussion and something that you will all have a view on. When I was putting this slide together, I thought about my 2-year-old daughter and my own tram experiences every morning as we come in from Port Melbourne. What I see ethnicity, I see hope, I see joy, I see despair, I see sadness, I see reality, but I also see potential. And that's one of the things that makes cities great. They're real, they're authentic. They tell stories as they are, and the stories aren't always great stories, but they're real stories, and you can have different experiences as you move through them. Cities are transient, and that's a good thing, but they also need to be stable and permanent, which is a good thing as well. So when I think about that, you will all have your own perspectives, but when I think about what great cities mean, that's what comes to my mind. Mine and my team's responsibility as developers who are responsible for the extension of the city is to think about how we manifest that into a public outcome and a built form response. We do lots of work with lots of really interesting people who have lots of great thoughts about what these could be. And one of these is a guy that we work with called Craig Alchin at the moment, who's helping us to understand that as a developer, what is it that we need to do to create the real experience of a city? And how do we leave that legacy? I say that we use Craig, but Craig is amongst a whole range of diverse thinkers that we like to bring to the table. But one of the ways that we're trying to understand how we can make a real experience for the Docklands, and in particular our precinct, is by these principles. So in a physical sense, cities have to be authentic. They have to tell the story for truly what they are. They have to be compressed. So we think about what's fabulous about the Melbourne laneways. Well, they're small and they're compressed and people have to be tight and close in together, as opposed to creating big industrial sort of, spaces that go on forever and ever and ever. We have to activate, but we have to activate from the ground plane. Activation is about what people like to do. That's what activation is about. So we need to pay attention to what that means. Diversity in built form, diversity in use, diversity in space, diversity in opportunity. Governance and finance models. This is one of the things that's very dear to my heart. The public sector and the private industry need to understand and come together that the way we deliver things that people need is by doing it collectively. So that's a very important point that I continue to bat on about. So, welcome to Victoria Harbour. Victoria Harbour is the length that you see coming out here. It's a 30-hectare site. It's an extension of the Melbourne CBD by a factor of 1/3. It has a 20-year development life, of which we are 10 years through. And at the end of its development, will deliver 350,000 square metres of commercial office space, circa 15 up to 2,000 residential dwellings, about 40,000 square metres of retail and mixed-use space. It's a really big precinct. It also has obligations and responsibilities to deliver a whole range of civic infrastructure and public realm. So Lend-Lease was given the development rights for this site in 2001, so that tells you that we are 10 years through our development. The vision for us is about creating vibrant, activated and appealing places for residents, workers and visitors. The first 10 years has really been about the commercial development aspects of this site. So you'll see our two edges are anchored by the ANZ and by the National Australia Bank. We also have Ericsson, Fujitsu and a whole range of other people. The Myer head office is there. So we're about 70% of the way through our commercial development. And so what that tells you is that the next 10 years is about residential experiences. And what is residential about? As much as commercial precincts, it's about creating places for people and where they want to be and where they want to live and spend time. Very important to Lend-Lease is the agenda around sustainability. We are proud that the commercial buildings have delivered the highest concentration of green buildings in Australia, which is only one part of the sustainability message. So if you're going to deliver holistic places, you also have to deliver economic capacity and also social infrastructure and capacity for communities as well. So we deliver this in partnership with the State Government Development Authority, Places Victoria, and also the City of Melbourne. And I would re-emphasise that the way things get delivered of a scale this significant is by input from all participants who have a role to play. So these are the things that we are doing at the moment. Infrastructure delivery, we're going to extend the Collins Street tram. We have a waterways strategy which is going to facilitate interaction amongst the 6 different Docklands sites. We will complete Bourke Street and Collins Street and grow the central landscape. This is all in the next 18 months. We will be delivering a library and community building. Some people may have already seen that building. If you haven't, I encourage you to have a look at it. It's a very progressive agenda from both the City of Melbourne and Places Victoria in the next sort of generation of experience of what libraries should be. And I would encourage anybody to go and talk to the City of Melbourne librarians about what libraries actually are and what we might think they are and what the difference between those two things is. Large open parks, some pocket parks. We'd love a floating swimming pool. We are working hard to deliver that at some point. A retail strategy, what you have to do is understand what retail you need now, what you need in the future, and prepare for and deliver both, which is a challenge. So 2 small pocket parks, bars and places to eat, a cinema, boutique office space. So, as you can see, one of the tenets for us is working very hard on the ground plane and continuing to deliver that. The innovation, we'll talk in a minute about our new timber building and why we're excited about that. The sustainability agenda and also the development momentum. One of the things we talked about earlier is the fact that civic and community infrastructure is generally delayed, and that's a consequence of parties' inability or unwillingness to come together early to deliver things ahead of time. And we have learnt those lessons time and time again as a state and as a country, and we are committed to addressing that issue proactively. One of the things that you can see here is Dock Square. This is the render for the park and the library and the tram stop, which Collins and Burke Street will merge in our designed master plan, which is weird if you're from Victoria, but an interesting celebration point for us and something that we really think will be a public realm design feature. So the Dock Square area is being delivered. There you can see our floating pool. The library is adjacent to it on the edge here, and then we also have a design in progress for a community boating hub. One of the things that's important also is compressing a range of uses together, so people don't have to walk very far to take their child to swimming lessons or get a book from a shop or have a coffee or do a whole range of other things. So that notion of civic, condensed neighbourhood scale, very important for us. This is the promenade. We materially change our architectural language once we get to those civic and community spaces, and we go down into more low-rise wharf timber style products, which is where you can set up your own architectural practice. You can probably live there as well if you like, and you might find a microbrewery or a whole range of different things. So diversity of use of place as we continue the development out to terminate just before the Balti Bridge. Forte, which I mentioned earlier, is our cross-laminated timber apartment building. It was released to the market about 3 weeks ago. It's a 23-unit boutique building made entirely out of cross-laminated timber. It's a lightweight structure, being used often and for a long period of time in Europe for residential construction. It's new to Australia. So the fabulous thing about this is not only the quality and the durability of timber as a finished material, but also the fact that these buildings go up very quickly. So if anyone's on Burke Street at Victoria Harbour, you can probably watch 3 panels go in the space of a couple of hours. So very new, interesting technology for us. To finish off, my favourite Melbourne place. I was asked to do a building, but I'm not an architect, so I cannot speak with authority. But my favourite Melbourne place is De Grave Street because it has all of those experiences that we talked about or that I mentioned earlier as being important to me in what makes a city. You can be rich, you can be poor, you can be groovy, you can be old, you can be anything in De Grave's Street and have a good time. But because I had to give a favourite building, my favourite building is the Manchester Unity building, and the reason is because I have no idea about that building, and I have never been in it, and someone took me in there for a coffee the other day, and we looked at this fabulous little place, and I went, oh, this looks pretty cool, I probably should learn about it. And that's also, again, one of those great things about being in a city. You can go and learn about stuff and continue that journey. So, thank you.